Big Questions with the Dead Milkmen. Each week, while working on the new album, the Dead Milkmen ask each other a question.
So this week's big question, it's a medium-sized question. What is the weirdest, craziest, scariest thing a fan has said or done or sent to you? And then I said, if you want, you can also share the nicest or coolest thing they've done or said to you. So I chose something that I received recently, actually. It was at our show in, Baltimore. And I had spoken with this lady through, I think, Instagram. And she talked about how she had something she wanted to give me. And, that can be nerve-wracking to hear or read. But she said it was a pic that Dave Blood used at a show that he gave to her. And then she had put it around this little wristband. And she wanted to give it to me. And I said, are you sure? Because that's a really cool thing. And she was like, yeah, I just want to give it to you. So she gave it to me. And then I gave her one of my picks. And I said, here. So in 10, 15 years with the new bass player, give that to him.
We were supposed to throw that pick into a volcano. And then Geddy Lee came leaping out of nowhere going, my precious.
It's not a virgin, so it wouldn't work.
I was going with the Lord of the Rings reference.
Oh, okay. I was just going for like throwing a virgin in a volcano reference. Oh, my runner-up, by the way, which I know you guys received these as well, and I still don't know who it was, and I want to thank them, was Goat Man Lives.
Goat Man Lives. I go, yeah, one of those, yeah.
And as you can maybe tell, I've really worn the hell out of this, and it's in tons of pictures, and it was one of those for like a couple years. It was like 3 days a week wearing this shirt. So,
our show has more cryptid references than actual shows about cryptids.
Does anybody remember who sent these to us? And why? Like how?
Gerald Ford.
It was a message from Squeaky.
Was Gollum a virgin? I mean, I'm just going with your theory here. Sorry to go off track.
What was his name?
Smeagol was his
Smeagol,
original name. Yeah, Smeagol.
Yeah, he probably was a virgin too. Well, so yeah, that's also, I think, the coolest. So I did the bonus one in the same answer. But also, it's fun. I haven't gotten it so much anymore because mail doesn't seem as popular, but for a while, just getting random things. A guy sent like letters and an iron-on Ford Econoline patch, just really cool.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my answer. Dave Blood pick.
That's very cool. That's very, very nice.
Yeah.
I went for the nice things answer, and I have two examples. One is a few years back we played a show at the what is it called, the Polish National Home, and for some reason when we set up to do our sound check, I discovered that I did not have a drum seat, which is very strange. Yeah, the throne was gone. I think I sat on like a desk chair with some phone books on it or something for sound check. But luckily, our friend and fan of the band, Marshall, who is also an excellent drummer, was coming up to the show, and he was arriving a little bit later, before our set, but after sound check. And he kindly, I think he said he already had his drum throne in the back of his car, and so that I could use it that night. And so I really appreciate, and I remember that it really saved the day and it saved the show, because I was much more comfortable, and I think I played a better show sitting on a real drum seat and not a desk chair with some phone books on it. So that's one example. The other example is, let's see, it was someone who we used to see when we went to Minneapolis back in the day. Her name was Jackie, and she and her sister, I believe, used to make meals for the bands that played the First Avenue Club. And I found some old pictures, thanks to Dan Mapp, last week's guest, of a show that we did in Minneapolis in 1989. And you can see a picture of us on screen now, of us with Jackie. And then you can also see a close-up of the cake that she baked for us back then in 1989. And the cool thing is that through the magic of social media over the last couple of years, I've reconnected with Jackie through Facebook. And she contacted us and said that she wanted to come see us. We played a show in Colorado at the Gothic Theater, and she was going to bring her daughter along to come see us because she wanted to introduce her daughter to our music. And so we played the show, and she showed up, and she was carrying a big box. And inside that box was another cake, which is great. And it was beautiful. It was nice to catch up with her, nice to see her. And it was just a very kind and thoughtful thing. She carried that cake on the airplane. She went through security and everything. But luckily, there was no like metal files or anything to get us out of prison or anything in there. But
they were pretty good likenesses, I think.
Yeah, she did a good job. And so, you know, that was a great thing. And, you know, we consider her a friend as well. So those are two things that I appreciate.
Okay. Well, young Skywalker, I shall be returning balance to the Force. That's the only line I know from Star Trek. I shall be returning balance to the Force by talking about the good and the bad. First, the good. In fact, this is the terrific. These are things that I keep on my wall. These are letters and emails that I printed out from people whose lives or lives of others that they know that we affected very positively. You know, people who knew a young person who our music made a big difference for them, or in this case, somebody who was very, very sick, and they got some stuff and you know, some stuff that we signed and stuff like that, and it really made a difference. He felt like giving up, and it gave him some strength. So I think I keep those on my wall, and then when I come in here on Sunday or you know, any day of the week, I don't quite feel like practicing, or I don't quite feel like writing a song, I take a look up. I keep one up there, one over there, and it just reminds me that it's not about me. It's about making other people feel better or giving them something that just helps. So that's going to do that. It's also helpful when I don't feel like paying $150 for a VST that I used to have the free one, and then I used the free one on a song, and then I couldn't get that old one over to the new system. And then so I tried sampling it, and there was some rando at one of our sound checks going, you know, there's a lot of dirt in that sample. Yeah, there's a lot of dirt between your ears, shithead. I think stuff like that, but I don't say it. But I'm like, so that just kind of makes me want to realize, okay, got to spend that cash because it's for some nice people. Now, a couple of things about the bad side of fans. I'll give you a couple of examples. The first one is for the 5 or 6 of you who made it past the 25-minute mark last week and last week's marathon episode. I was talking at one point about Dave Blood talking. I said a guy who he said was art-ish and not art-y. Art-y being good, artish being bad. Like the difference between childlike and childish. I remembered actually right after that, there was actually a young lady who was standing there at one of our sound checks, and as I went by, I actually said, Rodney, turn that frown upside down. I should have asked for a jury trial. No one would have convicted me, but that's who Dave Blood was talking about. So that reminded me of that if you saw last week's episode. No, not go back, watch through all that. Also, there was another guy one time that was liberating a bunch of beer and stuff like food. I kind of want to take some of it back to the hotel room from our dressing room because he had an art exhibit that I believe he was charging people for, and he couldn't buy the beer. So, and then I was like, I figured that out, and then somebody from one of the opening bands was hanging out there, was like, that exhibit's gonna suck. But those people pale in comparison to the one I'm about to give you now. A few years ago, we're getting ready to go on stage. There's a guy standing by the side of the stage. How he got backstage, how any of these people get backstage, I will never understand. But he's standing by the side of the stage on my side of the stage. And my wife likes to dress me like some sort of time traveler. So I had this shirt with this big cow on it and everything, and not like the Elsie cow, but like a cow, like, you know, and so the guy goes, you shouldn't wear that on stage because it makes you look like Uncle Fester. And I'm thinking, well, you look like a 2-legged piece of shit. Again, I didn't say it. I thought it. And I'm like, but you shouldn't say something like that to somebody because your confidence is needed when you go out there. And I'm like, well, he might be nervous and he just might be saying stuff. And so I just kind of ignore him. And then he says it. Now, this is a quote. This is not an impression. This is not paraphrasing. He actually said the following. Wouldn't it be funny if I ran out in the middle of your set and started knocking all your amps over? Would people like that? And I was like, wouldn't it be funny if your family died in a fire? And again, I didn't say it, but I thought it. And I was like, no, people paid money to hear us, not to see you come out and knock our amps over. And I thought later on, maybe the guy's just nervous because, I'm very careful what I say to a band before they head out the stage. It's usually like break a leg, or I can't wait to see your show or whatever, or I'll usually be out front. But then the movie The Fanatic came out. I don't know how familiar you guys are with The Fanatic, but in The Fanatic, John Travolta plays a fan named Moose. It's a film with Moose is in the house, Moose is in the house, and it's directed by Fred Durst. It's a masterpiece. But the minute I saw this guy, I saw the John Travolta's Moose, I immediately thought of this guy. So if he's watching, and I doubt he is, if he's watching and you were just nervous, that's fine. But if you weren't, don't ever say to a band, wouldn't it be funny if I came out and knocked all your amps over? And I got to go out and play after hearing that. So that is my yin and yang, the good and the bad. Joseph?
I went with the strangest thing or the weirdest thing that was sent to me, and it was addressed to me as Joe Jack Talcum. It was a rather rambling letter written on not paper, but very heavy ceramic tile that would be like floor tile. And it came to our post office box, which isn't anywhere near I live, but we don't have that post office box anymore, but it was what we had printed on the back of our albums and things right to us or whatever. And this was after we had announced that we disbanded. I think the time period was Stoney's Extra Stout Pig had just been released or something like that. But we still had the P.O. box going, and I would check it periodically. The mail wasn't as wasn't as large.
Voluminous.
As much voluminous as that's the word. Voluminous as it was when we were in our heyday, but we still got mail, and I had to empty the box regularly. And I happened to have a job downtown, not too far from there. I think Rodney knows. I think he had the same job, but not at the exact same period of time.
Yeah, that's Cinnamon's corner now. We can't work that corner.
It's on 13th Street, so it wasn't too far. Our P.O. box was on the 15th Street. If you know Philadelphia, it was under the clothespin, but that makes no sense to most people probably. There's a big clothespin in Philadelphia. Anyway, it didn't fit in the P.O. box, but I had to ring a bell and get the postman or whoever to hand the box over, and he said, "This is really, really heavy. Be careful." It was really, really heavy. I carried it to work, then
How big was
it back home.
What did you think was in it?
I didn't know till I got home, and it was a letter. It was just and I actually recognized the recipient as somebody I had met as a fan of ours, who I had met after our last show that we played in Memphis. I think was the Antenna Club, and he was like college freshman, pretty good looking, kind of flirty, and he said, if you're not doing anything tomorrow, it's my shift at Cracker Barrel. I'll get the band free breakfast. And I think we were familiar with Cracker Barrel then anyway, but it's a restaurant, a chain, in case you don't know. And sure enough, we went there, and he was there, and we got our free whatever. He comped us our breakfast. So I remember who it was. And in fact, but I guess he wanted to make a statement. I know by the time he sent this, he was about to graduate college. But he had, I think in 95, he had a layover in Philadelphia. He was going to France or something. It was a summer to see his girlfriend. and he said, I have a layover in Philadelphia. Want to hang out a little bit? I have so many hours. And I said, sure, I'll hang out. I'm not too far. And I had a little car then, a little Chevette.
Oh yeah.
And we hung out. And then I said, I'll drive you to the airport. And then we need to get a whatever shuttle. But I didn't make it in time. He didn't make the flight and had to wait one more day.
Oh,
His girlfriend was probably pissed at him. But anyway, that's who it was from. And it was just a long letter. I don't have it I didn't really keep that because it was so heavy, but I think that's
how
the
big was
weirdest
it?
thing
Like, was it like 8
no,
by 8?
it was this what like 10 by 10 tiles, and they were just stacked up like in maybe the box that they would normally come in. He spent a fortune, I guess.
I was gonna postage must have astronomical.
But yeah, maybe it was payback for making him miss his flight. But
That
that's
story begs more questions than it answers. There's so much open-ended there.
there is a lot of open-ended.
There's a lot of really, yeah. It's
Never
like
saw him.
I
I only
expected it to
saw
go
him
somewhere really dark.
there's 3 times, I guess.
Well,
at
was the
show.
letter I don't know, was it angry that we were
No,
like
it was just rambling. I mean, talking about his, mention he broke up with that girl. I don't know. I don't have it. If it were modern times, I would have surely taken camera shots of it before I disposed of it. But
What, they didn't have cameras back then, Joe?
they did, but I didn't think of taking pictures of this. I was
What
just
was
kind of like, oh, this is a thing I had to lug back.
What did he use to write on it? A marker?
Yeah, it was kind of largish, probably Sharpie.
I can
Like
never
he
hear
could've-
about box of tiles without hearing the jerky voice in my head going, Frank Rizzo, these tiles are all fucked up.
I guess someone could tile their floor with them if they wanted to tile a letter onto the floor.
Hey,
It
that
could have
would-
been a good keepsake, but I didn't keep it.
That would be cool if somebody used that on their floor and then like 50 years later someone pried it up and was like, there's a letter on these tiles.
He was probably burying people in his basement. That was a tile they pulled up to do it, and they had to put down new tile. Trust me, I know about this.
It's a confession.
And coolest things, I mean, there's too many I've gotten so many good, cool things from people and words of encouragement. Even today, I got a nice word of encouragement email, and people send them by email now instead of
And that word was boobs.
and some criticisms like from German people.
Das boobs.
I think that has worked its way into every one of them.
If we had German cryptids,
Sorry.
man, we could just wrap the show up now.
Yeah, how long is the show gonna last?
That's so good. We
almost done our album,
love
I
to
think.
beat something to death.
Then while we're working on the album,
Yeah. Yeah, man, this
It hasn't come out
band,
yet.
We're
yeah, the
still
joke of this
technically
band should have been
working
over
on
in like,
it.
by the time you were in high school. It shouldn't have played out into
How
our
long
thing.
is this? Yeah, how long is this band gonna last?
and you drag me into this shit too. Well,
All right.
thanks, guys. That was good answers. I also had a memory of when we were in Seattle in 2015, and after the show, a guy came up and was putting the bass away, and he was like, "Dude, that was great, man." And I was like, "Thanks." He's like, "You're so young. Like, how do you look so young?" And I was like, "Well."
Oh,
He's like, "So how old were you when Big Lizard came out?"
I know.
And I was like,
I was 5.
I made the decision to just be like 7.
Mhm.
He was like,
Oh.
"You've been playing bass since you were 7?" And I was like, I wanted to keep going, but then I felt, a little bad. So I was like, no, I'm not the original bass player. I started when I was 12.
I've told the story a million times. I'm sure everybody watching has heard it, but the song Stewart was just basically a guy in Oklahoma just came up and pretty much said everything in that song. Just like, he was happy they let him out in time for the show. So
All right. Should we do recommendations?
yes, let's get to these.
All right. I would like to recommend Japanese soda. Not necessarily. This actually might be my least favorite flavor of them. But see, it's Japanese. You can get a H Mart or Japanese food places.
Japanese soda should be a Cure lyric. Sometimes I feel like a Japanese soda.
But
sitting by the sea.
It doesn't have high fructose corn syrup. It's just carbonated water, sugar, natural flavor, lychee.
From Fukushima.
Citric acid and sodium citrate. So it's pretty good. The plain one is even good, original, whatever. So that's.
You have to go to a special store to get that?
Say what?
You have to go to a special store?
No. Amy got them at a Japanese food store or like a, takeout place.
Like the H Mart or something?
No, like where you would just like order Chinese, Japanese food and you get.
Oh, okay.
Tomar, the eighth Mart.
Yeah. So, you guys have you ever tried it? Joe, you never had it?
I've never had Japanese soda.
He's afraid he'll be turning Japanese. He think he's turning Japanese.
I've had Mexican Coke.
Here's the thing about it that I already ruined it, but maybe it'll be a surprise for anybody who's interested. But it comes with this thing, this extra top, right? And inside that is this. And when you put this on the top here and you push down, this little glass ball comes down from the seal, and then it's like, it keeps it, fresh.
It's awesome.
So it's fun too.
Entertaining and refreshing.
See? Dean already knows.
And I have never even had one.
I will no longer think of vending machines with underwear in them when I think of Japan. I'm going to think of that.
Oh, I also wanted to throw in, you guys know, you remember Third Story Recordings?
Yeah.
Studio? I don't know if they ever stopped, but they are back. And my friend Jason Rose, who I know Joe knows, but I don't know if you guys met him. He's started working there. So he said, hey, if the guys ever want to come see what the place is like now.
Is it still out on, what was it, like Chestnut Street or somewhere?
I don't know. I didn't ask him.
Hold on, I think way out. Yeah.
I think there's a chance they never stopped, or maybe did for a little bit, but I think.
Yeah.
What was the guy's name there?
Originally, it was
John Wicks.
John Wicks, but he left, and then it was taken over. I forget who ran it for a while. But anyway, yeah, that's interesting that they're still there. That's cool.
Yeah. All right, next.
Okay, for my recommendation, I would like to recommend a website article entitled "The Murky, Salty Mystery of Worcestershire Sauce." Another hard word to pronounce tonight. It's an interesting article that tells you all about Worcestershire sauce. Chances are you all have maybe a bottle sitting in your kitchen cabinet somewhere that maybe you used to make Bloody Marys at one point years ago. I think I have like 3 half bottles of it floating around somewhere in the kitchen. There's a couple of fun facts. You can read the whole article, but the 2 guys in England, Lee and Perrin, invented it. And in fact, they were pharmacists. And back then in the 1800s, I guess, pharmacies were not regulated. And so they would like make concoctions and sell medicines and foods and all kinds of weird stuff, maybe even Japanese soda. I don't know. But they started like fermenting like stuff in the back room, and they let it ferment for like 18 months in a barrel, and then they bottled it. It had a special recipe, and the recipe was not even it was a secret recipe until about 2009, I think. And the daughter of someone who used to work for the company said that her father had found the recipe in a trash dumpster at one point. So there are other, Lee and Perrins is probably the most famous brand, and it's owned by Kraft Foods now, but there are other companies that make variations of it. Anyway, read the article. There's some interesting, cool facts in there about it. Worcestershire sauce. Yes. Anyway, interesting article. That's my recommendation.
We've got less than 7 minutes, so I'm going to cut down to just one recommendation. It's a big one. I'm going to try to move through it quickly, but this is important, so please stick with me, folks. Sometimes we think because we know something, a fact, the whole world does, and often that's not quite right. I was listening to the Digital Folklore podcast the other day, and the guest was Kathleen Hale. And Kathleen Hale has a really great new book out. I haven't read it yet. I want to get a hold of it. Reviews are good. Called Slenderman. online obsession, mental illness, and the violent crime of two Midwestern girls. And she said something that chilled me to the bone. I'm going to repeat it, talk about it a little bit more, and I'm going to repeat it again and then give you a recommendation. What she said was, the children convicted in the Slenderman assault were sentenced under the Superpredator laws. Just like Slenderman, superpredators are a myth. For those of you who don't know what superpredators are, this was a theory created by a guy, I think it was John DiGiulio, I think his name was, back in the 90s, and it was seized upon by Bill Bennett, who, if you folks remember, was the old Secretary of Education, the guy who wrote the book about morals for children, and then we found out he had $100,000 worth of gambling debts. I'm going to repeat this again. It's important to say this, okay? The children convicted in the Slenderman assault were sentenced under the Superpredator laws. Superpredators are a myth, just like Slenderman, okay? Take that and say that to somebody this week. And don't say like, well, Rodney, I don't know enough about this, or I don't know enough about, even about Bill Bennett or anything like that. No, we'll have links. Just learn it and repeat it, because it's important that this gets said a lot. I'm going to be saying it regularly and putting up things because somebody needs to address this. Slenderman was a myth that children believed in, but the Superpredator, the idea of the Superpredator, that's a myth that adults believe in, and those laws have been on the books since the 90s. The hosts of the show were unfamiliar with it, but I'm sitting there feeling like I got hit with a brick. So yeah, please keep that in mind, folks.
I'd like to recommend an album by a fan of ours and also a fan of mine, my own music. And it's called Fixture. And the guy's name is Blake Pinder, Pinder. You can get it on Bandcamp. It just came out recently, and it is the most twee album I've ever heard in my life. It's only 8 songs, and you don't have to pay any money for it. It's one of those. But I paid money for it since I liked it. I decided to support this guy. He's a fan of ours. He lives in Vancouver. He came to my last solo show I played in Vancouver.
Title of the album again?
Fixture, if I didn't say it. Fixture.
Now I kind of wish I'd had time to recommend Stiff Valentine so I could kind of return balance to the force.
You can recommend it.
Yeah, they're not.
We still have time.
Throw a link in there.
Yeah.
Throw a link in there.
Yeah, okay. Well, Stiff Valentine, and then because the day before John Frum Day is something called Valentine's Day. I just heard about this. I'm big on John Frum Day.
Have you talked about John Frum on this show yet? Do people know?
Maybe I'll mention John Frum next week or something. But yeah, John, I should probably.
No, actually, next week will be. Oh no, it'll be the day after John Frum.
After John Frum Day, yeah. People go. Maybe I'll throw in a John Frum link. But yeah, I'll probably talk about John Frum. It's. I have a little plane. We actually decorate the house. We really do.
Charlie Brown, John Frum.
This year there will be a plane, and this year there will be cargo. I wish people at work, I wish them much cargo on John Frum Day. Like I'll be in a meeting and I'll be like, and I wish you much cargo today. I'm like, I just look at me.
It's a holiday.
Yeah. Are we out of here?
All right. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, guys.
All right.